Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. So it turns out that your temperament, choleric, sanguine, melancholic, or phlegmatic, might have way more to do with your sex life than you think. Today, we're breaking it all down. The good, the tricky, and the stuff that might finally make you say, oh, that's why we're like that. Let's get into it. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, the podcast for Catholic women that helps you improve your sex life, strengthen your marriage, and embrace God's design for love. My name is Ellen, and today I am joined by my amazing semi-regular co-host, Kathleen Chavanis. All right, let's talk about the 4 temperaments.
Temperaments. Catholics love temperaments.
They do. They really do.
Temperaments. Yeah.
And it's funny because it's not like a Catholic thing.
It's like
it has
basically become one. Yeah, it's like absolutely become a Catholic. Well, like, and there's some other like personality quizzes that are like very like sort of have like very pagan roots and things like that. So I think to have one that,
I mean, if we're talking pagan roots, we're talking about like, I mean, this is in 460 to 377 BC.
I don't know.
Like, that's pretty pagan.
I guess it's true.
We're talking about like,
no. Well,
this is Hippocrates. How do you pronounce that?
Hippocrates.
Oh man, somebody's gonna give me flack for that one. That's embarrassing. I knew it was wrong, and I couldn't remember how it was pronounced. I was like, oh, this is just gonna be rough. Okay, Hippocrates. And like Roman physician Galen. Following Hippocrates, like, that's pretty pagan. But that's okay, because the cool thing about Christians is we can take pagan things and bring beauty into them. I mean, Christmas trees, I don't know, other things, I'm sure.
Things can be redeemed.
Okay, so real quick, if you don't know what temperaments are, you could probably just skip ahead like 3 minutes if you're like, I know what the temperaments are. Mm-hmm. Stop telling me I'm Catholic. No.
Of course I know the temperaments.
All right, so they have funny names because of their origins. So their origins Hippocrates was like, there are 4 main types of fluid in people. There's choleric fluid, which is yellow bile from the liver. There is sanguine fluid, which is blood from the heart. There's melancholic fluid, which is black bile from the kidneys. I mean, this is beautiful stuff, guys. And then my favorite, there is phlegmatic fluid, which is phlegm from the lungs.
Wow.
By the way, I'm getting all of this from the book, The Temperament God Gave You by Art and Lorraine Bennett. That's like kind of the Catholic Bible of temperaments, I feel like.
Maybe if you're eating, just like pause until we're through all the fluid.
Yeah, right.
The nasty
Well,
fluid.
okay, that's all I'm going to talk about, bile and phlegm. Now we're going to move into what they basically are. So basically the idea then... So Hippocrates was like, here's the 4 fluids. And then the Roman physician Galen in 190 AD said that the balance of our bodily fluid affects our temperament. So like a sanguine who has more blood from the heart, has a higher balance of blood from the heart, is eager and optimistic. The melancholic who has more black bile from the kidneys is doleful. The choleric who has yellow bile from the liver is passionate. And the phlegmatic who has phlegm from the lungs is calm. I don't know how phlegm from the lungs makes you calm.
I don't know how any of those things make any of that, but...
I don't know. But regardless. Anyway, so that's where we get these weird names for them. But now we're really going to stop talking about bodily fluids and just talk about what...
Wow.
Okay, so the choleric... This is me, by the way. Cholerics are like driven, confident, assertive, goal-oriented. These are kind of more your type A type people. Strong emotions, quick to react, doesn't hold back, high energy, like natural leader. I read something in this book, The Temperament God Gave You, and it was like, cholerics are going to be a really good employee, if not just own the company. And I'm like, that's funny because I own my own business.
It is. Yeah. I mean, that is absolutely you.
Cholerics, weaknesses can be impatient, can be controlling, can be emotionally insensitive. Every time I read about cholerics, I'm like, this is just so me, like to the bone.
I know. It's so true.
Sanguine
This
core
is me.
traits are, yeah, this is Kathleen, which is great. I just feel like I want to be a sanguine. Sanguine is like my second, and I like desire for this to be my primary trait.
Yeah, well, listen, we all have...
Or temperament.
Yeah, we all have our... This is my primary. Melancholic is my secondary, which is like not the greatest, but... Well, I mean, I guess they all have their pluses and minuses.
Everybody like rags on melancholics, but I think there's some beauty in melancholics.
That's true. Very creative. Anyway,
I'm just so not melancholic, like so not, and I get
Gosh.
confused with melancholic people. I'm like, what? Why can't you just
This is why we're good friends.
think differently?
Yeah.
But that's just my choleric coming through.
Yeah.
Okay, so sanguine are social, fun-loving, affectionate, emotionally expressive. They're quick to react. Emotions are pretty like quick coming. They're like joyful, spontaneous, outgoing. Weaknesses are easily distracted, avoids discomfort, craves novelty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're sort of like the ADHD
Melancholic.
people.
Right?
Yeah.
That would be an interesting study.
That would be
Are there
interesting study.
more-
How many people with ADHD would be considered sanguine as their primary? Very interesting study.
Yeah. That would be super. Okay. All right, melancholic, the people I just don't understand. I'm just kidding. No, I'm totally
understand
kidding.
you people. I understand you
I'm being
melancholics out there.
facetious, everyone. All right, core traits are thoughtful, introspective, idealistic, and sensitive. These melancholic are a little slower to react, and emotions are deep. They're lasting. They stick around for a long time. Melancholics are loyal. They are analytical, and they really value like deep connection, deep understanding. Melancholics are self-critical. They are prone to depressive thoughts. They are anxious, prone to overthinking, and have a high fear of rejection. Yeah.
Just
Kathleen,
raising
you're
my
like,
hand
yep.
over here.
Yep.
Yeah, but also highly creative. That's the one thing melancholics are highly
Oh, yes.
creative in poetry, art,
Yes.
invention, all of those things.
And then the last one, phlegmatic, which I just think is the weirdest name.
It is.
I mean, all of them are weird, but phlegmatic, oof.
It is unfortunate.
Phlegmatics are peaceful, steady, kind, agreeable, calm. They're slow to react. Emotions are kind of mild and stable. Phlegmatics are easygoing, empathetic, loyal, and they avoid conflict. Weaknesses is that because of that, they're fairly passive, avoid confrontation, low initiative. Mm-hmm. So there's our like quick recap of what the 4 temperaments are. Now we want to talk about them in relation to sex and how they're going to affect your sex life. And then also we'll talk about, if we have time at the end, we'll go a little bit into like pairing up the temperaments and how, like, what some of those challenges are with the pairs. We may not be able to get to every pair because I think, you know, we'd be looking at like 16 pairs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll see what we can at least go through some of them. And then I think you can kind of like follow suit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is you can look up The Temperament God Gave You, the book by Art and Lorraine Bennett. It's really great, but they obviously don't go into like sex and how this affects sex. But a lot of times it kind of follows if you start thinking about that. But yeah, so I think this would be fun.
This will be fun. Let's do it.
All right. So we'll start back at choleric. Again, choleric, driven, intense, goal-oriented, confident, sometimes domineering. So
Yeah.
I think we can already start seeing some challenges.
Yeah. I know. Yeah.
And so these are just like common, these are kind of some things that we thought of. They may not necessarily apply to everything, because here's the thing is your temperament is going to affect like your difficulties in sex, but then also your like desire for sex, your sex drive is going to affect these things. And they're not necessarily going to be like equal, right? So just, you know, take everything that we say with a grain of salt. Like, if this is not gospel, right? Go read the Gospels if you want the gospel truth.
Yeah, but I think it's a good point that our drive is so much like biological, right? And like physiological, not just personality wise necessarily. Like it
Yeah.
takes a little bit of both, but this is, all personality.
Yeah. All right. So cholerics, I think the things that they're going to struggle with are impatience, right? Impatience with slow arousal. Like if the choleric is also the higher drive spouse, it's going to be difficult for the choleric to wait, to, be like also to tend to the emotional needs of the other spouse. That's going to be a difficulty. Also, like cholerics are very goal oriented. And so there might be just sort of this like orgasm or nothing, like feeling, especially if the woman is the choleric. And then it might just feel like a fail if there is no orgasm and no climax. And that's not true. I mean, I'm always like, I'm team orgasm. I have an orgasm course for Catholic women. Like, I'm team orgasm.
Definitely
but
team orgasm.
Like, sex can still be good without an orgasm. You can still enjoy yourself without an orgasm. You don't have to just go like mope about it if you don't get an orgasm.
Because the goal can
like enjoying the process.
Right, yes. And the goal can really
I think that could be hard for a cleric. Sorry, I'm talking over you.
No, that's okay. I was saying that looking at the goal is more just emotional and spiritual connection versus just orgasm. Like that can happen even without orgasm. Yeah.
And then the other thing that cholerics definitely struggle with, and I'm just really speaking about myself here, is like receiving feedback is really hard. And so then that can be really difficult in a sexual relationship, right? Of like, hey, I need you to do this, right? So if you're sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, my husband is choleric for sure, like recognize that when you can't just be like super outright direct and even snippy with correction, like saying, I want you to do something different. Like, think about softening it, encouraging, stuff like that.
Yeah. That's good.
Okay. And then the things that I think the choleric could really work on is like learning to read emotional cues. Like just, and particularly dependent on the choleric's spouse's temperament. But I mean, even choleric, you still need to read emotional clues.
Yeah.
Cues. Clues or cues. Have
Either
both
way,
of them.
they both fit. Yeah.
Patience, attentiveness, like humility even. Just really, I think just like giving it time and recognizing. And like this might mean patience with yourself. I think choleric wives are going to be very prone to, oh my gosh, I'm taking too long. We just need to move on. I think that thought can be super common. I think it can be common in all women, but like particularly choleric wives are going to be like impatient with themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else on cholerics? What do you think?
I don't think so, because that's all you, girl. I don't identify with the cholerics in many ways.
You don't understand us.
But moving on to sanguines, I identify very much with them. Yeah.
This is Kathleen. Do you want to take it away, or do you
Sure,
want
I'll
me to
take this one away. Yeah, I'll take this one away.
Okay.
So some core traits of the sanguines, right? Us sanguines out there, we are fun-loving, affectionate. We tend to be more spontaneous, although that's one I really don't jive with too much.
Maybe not spontaneous with sex. Like, I think spontaneity is common with sanguine, but it doesn't necessarily go into...
Yeah.
Well, because the other thing is, like, when we think of spontaneity with sex, we're often thinking about the two types of sex drives, spontaneous sex drive and responsive sex drive. And again, that is like physiological. That is not temperament, personality trait wise, right? So don't get confusing. Again, like this is just like interesting things to think about, and maybe something that's going to help you connect more with your spouse. Yeah. This is not going to be like 100% true across the board. Correct. For every single person.
Yeah. Everyone's got like different levels of all these different things. So so spontaneous and then emotionally expressive. That is totally me. Very emotionally expressive. So some common sexual difficulties that we can experience are that we might seek novelty. We don't really care for routine very much. In that case, like you can grow frustrated if sex feels very predictable or if it feels infrequent. We can also be very emotionally reactive. So because we are emotionally expressive, we tend to be a little reactive, which we can get discouraged then if our spouse seems distant or less responsive. It's funny because I think my husband and I are both sanguine, but I think he's also choleric and then I'm also melancholic. So it's, as we're reading this, it's just like one of us is definitely applying to all of this. And then another difficulty is we can be sort of shallow in intimacy. Like we want that connection, but we may avoid any like real depth or vulnerable conversations. That can be right. Difficult.
That vulnerability can be like a difficult spot for sanguines. And then I think in sex, like it can really show up. Like sex can just be this magnifying glass for a fear of vulnerability or just a closing off to vulnerability.
Yeah.
And so that's really something that the sanguine can like really consciously think about is like, this is my husband. Again, we're just going to talk from the woman's side here because this is a woman's podcast, but if you're a man listening, just flip it. This is my husband. This is my safe place. I am safe here. I can open up. I can be vulnerable. Like it's safe to do so. And like reminding yourself that and then allowing yourself to really open up and be vulnerable. Because sanguine is my second. And so I like definitely feel like particularly that vulnerability one, that's a rough one for me.
No, I agree. And I have noticed that honestly, if you can work on like foreplay and sort of getting yourself in the mood, that has such an effect on your level of vulnerability. That again,
Such
for me personally, that's what I've very much noticed, that if I'm a little more stressed out and I'm not quite feeling like just turned on enough or like ready enough, vulnerability is very difficult, to the point that my husband tends to internalize that and he notices it and it's kind of just like makes the entire like experience not awesome, not that great.
Right.
But if I am more dialed in and I'm more relaxed and I'm more turned on, it just makes all the difference in how deep I can actually go, just emotionally, and the vulnerability that I allow myself to experience then. And that's like when you have like really good sex. So it's actually, it's interesting, but that is something that I think we can work on in terms of that vulnerability, is how are we preparing for sex? Can we really engage, to the level that we want to, just by kind of
I think that's across the board, like regardless of your temperament. If you're like, I don't, not sanguine, right? But that concept of like intentionally preparing for sex, because I think a lot of times, particularly because we just expect sex to like be easy and spontaneous, we don't intentionally prepare for sex. We don't sit down for 5 minutes and think about sex,
right?
And think about what we would, and I would even argue 5 minutes is not enough, but if you only have 5 minutes, that's fine. But like, think about, okay, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna initiate? Or my husband already initiated. Are we gonna play like a game during foreplay? Are we gonna talk and tell a story? Are we just gonna be silent and, or whatever, right? Like, and like, how am I feeling? And what do I need today? Like, we don't do that, and we should.
No, I agree with you. So, okay, back to sanguines. How can we overcome some of these difficulties? So first we can ground spontaneity with intentionality. So
that's exactly what we were just saying.
It is, yeah, exactly. So keep fun in the bedroom, but also build in rituals that foster connection, right? So maybe that's prayer before being intimate. Maybe that's more eye contact. Maybe it's massage, right? Whatever you need to do to sort of feel that connection prior to intimacy. Another thing is learning to navigate your spouse's moods with stability. So the thing with temperaments is that our emotional energy does not always match, right? Or mirror each other, like depending on what your temperament is. We can't take that personally. You just have to look at your spouse as a whole, right? Like this is who they are. And this is just how we're going to be, right? So don't take it personally if they're not exactly where you are, which I think is something that we can all really struggle with, me especially.
Yeah. There's a grid of the temperaments where like let's say the y-axis is high emotional energy and low emotional energy.
Yeah.
And so the choleric and the sanguine are high on the high emotional energy side.
Yes.
And then the melancholic and the phlegmatic are on the low emotional energy side. And so that is something that we just like don't really think about all that much.
Yeah.
But it can really affect, like we can feel like if you're a high emotional energy like person and your spouse is a low emotional energy person, it can feel like, oh my gosh, they don't actually care. They don't actually love me. And it's like, no, they're like, naturally their emotional energy is very low. Like, you know, I'm at a theme park and I'm like skipping around super excited. I'm just thinking about a couple of months ago, my family went to Disneyland, right? So I'm like, I am high energy all up here.
Yeah.
Like my emotions are like super high. I'm so excited, right? My husband is also having a good time. He is not skipping around excited. Like he's pushing the stroller and he's like, where are we going next?
That's
Let's
so
go.
funny.
You know, and like if I earlier on in our marriage, before I like, before we get to know each other, right? I would have been like so upset that he wasn't also equally as like wildly excited about being at Disneyland. He had a great time at Disneyland. He just naturally has lower emotional energy. And so it's not going to, like, his excitement is not going to come out at the same level as my excitement is going to come out. So that's what we mean by that, like, not matching emotional energy.
Yeah. No, that was a good example. And then the last thing I'll say is we can go deeper, right? So maybe journal or pray about the meaning of sex and discuss it with your spouse to develop more like spiritual and emotional intimacy, right? What does sex mean to you? What do you get out of sex? Like, what do you want? How do you want to feel coming out of sex or going into sex? You know, like, what does it mean for your relationship? Just kind of being able to sit and talk about those things can help us as well. So that's sanguine.
All right. Next on our list is melancholic.
Melancholic.
This is going to be funny for me to be the one leading melancholic.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I love you guys, you melancholics, you.
Do you though? Do you love us?
I just don't understand you. Well, I love a melancholic. So, I mean, actually, I think melancholic's his second. I'm pretty sure my husband is phlegmatic melancholic.
Yeah.
So we're like exact opposites.
It's so funny. Opposites attract. See that? Opposites attract.
Yep. Okay, so melancholics are reflective, detail-oriented, emotionally intense, cautious, idealistic. And so when that comes to sex, what kind of comes out is like very self-critical. I'm not desirable. I'm doing this wrong. I'll never get it right. I'm the problem. Mm-hmm. And look, like, I think melancholics, y'all need to remember sex is a team sport. Like, you are not the problem. Yes, I'm sure you have things to work on, but so does your spouse.
Yeah.
Like, this is a team sport. Don't, like, just rag on yourself.
Easier said than done, Ellen.
Like, right? I'm just a choleric. I'm just like, just stop thinking that. Just stop.
See, you're just speaking truth into us, so it's good. That's what we need. That's what we need.
All right. Melancholics tend to overthink, and it can be super difficult to stay present in the moment if you are super overthinking. I think that overthinking is like higher in melancholics, but across the board for women. Women tend to overthink. Yeah. And it's super hard to stay present in the body if you are overthinking. Very fearful of rejection, fearful of like not being enough. This can lead to shutdown. This can lead to avoidance. Melancholics, our guess, I mean, we don't really know. There's not like research on it, but our guess is that melancholics probably initiate the least out of the four temperaments. That's my guess. And really just because of like more of this avoidant nature.
Yeah.
So what's really important for melancholics is to recognize safety. I mean, we've talked about before how important safety is. I talk about this in the Orgasm Course for Catholic women, that like you're not going to reach orgasm if you don't feel safe. And that has to be more than just an intellectual, like, I am with my husband and I am safe. I know this intellectually. Like, you need to feel it in your body.
Right, yeah.
And so cultivate that safety. Ask for affirmations. Melancholics are really going to respond well to affirming language from your spouse. So, you know, I love you. I love being close to you. You're doing great. Take all the time you need. Like, those kind of things. And honestly, melancholic ladies, like, write down a list of things that would be helpful to hear on a little index card and give it to your husband. And he can, like, keep it on his bedside table or, like, in the drawer of his bedside table or something like that. And he can just, like, pull it out and remember the things that would be helpful to say. Like, calming practices, reduce your anxiety, practice not overthinking. Breath work can be super helpful. And I don't mean the wooey breath work. I mean, just like breathe in for a count of 4, breathe out for a count of 4. Like just calming breaths to calm you down. Prayer, meditation. And then like take the pressure off. Keep foreplay like lighthearted and playful even. And then get away from the need for perfection. Shift it into like the what we're doing here is for connection. I think this also really applies to cholerics, is like get rid of that perfectionist nature. But you know, like sex is not about performance. It's not about reaching orgasm. Sex is about unity, about connection, about communication with the spouses.
Yeah.
Anything else on melancholics?
No, you covered it. You did a good job. Which brings us to the phlegmatics.
Just the weirdest name.
The phlegmy people.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't get it. But so phlegmatics, we've got core traits, which they're the people that are peaceful, they're gentle, they're very agreeable, conflict avoidant, very emotionally steady. Y'all are our gentle parenters. That's what you are. The whole gentle parenting, I just struggle with.
It's the phlegmatics.
Yeah, you phlegmatics are a people to be marveled at, because I would love so much to be a gentle parent. I can't do it. Well, my kids are also not gentle kids, so.
I remember seeing something on like Instagram and it was like, I was trying a gentle parent today, but my kids weren't gentle kidding.
No, my kids are not. They never gentle kid. So there is a level where, you know what? God gives us what we need, you know? And he gave my kids me because they're wild and I'm a little bit feral as well. So, okay. So some common sexual difficulties that phlegmatics might experience are low initiative or drive, which again, we talked about how drive is very biological as well, right? Like, are we nourished enough? Like things just like how we're eating, are we exercising? Like those things very much affect our drive. So we can't really say totally, but you may have low initiative, right? Like you may not initiate sex very much.
It's like you may desire to have sex, but you're kind of like, oop, don't really want to rock the boat. Maybe my spouse doesn't want to have sex right now. I'm not going to initiate. Like that's kind of more the phlegmatic response potentially. Yes. And again, we're not speaking absolute truths here. Like we're just generalities, things to think about, things that might help you in your sexual relationship.
Yeah. So you might be someone that prefers comfort over effort.
That's good.
Yeah. Another thing is we struggle, or I'm saying we like I'm phlegmatic. I'm not. Phlegmatics struggle to express needs or desires. They may sort of go along without full engagement, which if you're, someone who takes other people's feelings personally may not be the best match it. That could be a struggle to match up with. And then phlegmatics avoid conflict. So don't necessarily want to speak up if something feels off or unsatisfying. So that communication that's required in sex can really be a struggle because you don't want it to kind of be a problem. You don't want to tell them they're doing something wrong or it's not working or whatever. You might just feel bad about it. So that's very much a difficulty that you can experience.
Yeah, I think it's really important for phlegmatics to like just get brave about talking. Like it's okay if there is like some tension and conflict with sex, because then you'll be able to. It's funny. I'm saying this as a choleric. I'm like, it's okay if there's a fight.
It's fine. It's really
Not a big
fine.
deal.
You don't have to worry about it. But you know what? I've been listening to a podcast recently, and something that he said in it multiple times is do it scared. And
That's good.
I think that's it. You know what I mean? You've got to do it.
You can do what I tell my 3 and 5-year-old to do. We do brave roars in our house. And so when you're feeling scared about about something, I'm like, do a brave roar. And like literally like, rah, like do that. And it actually helps.
That's so cute.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I should do that with my 5-year-old.
Parenting hack, guys. Parenting hack.
That.
If your kid is afraid about doing something, tell them to do a brave roar. And they're so, like, they'll just do it.
Wow. That's a great idea. Okay, I'm taking that one for sure. My 5-year-old is like scared to go to his bedroom alone to like get ready for bed. So I'm going to have him start brave roaring before he...
Yeah, do it.
Perfect.
It might be weird if you're just like right before a conversation with your husband, you're like, "Rah."
Yeah.
Maybe do it. Maybe do it alone. Maybe go inside for a minute.
Here's the thing. They could take it a different way. You know what I mean? Like you're roaring before you go to the bedroom. Like, whoa. They might be ready, thinking you're totally ready. Yeah, definitely don't do that. Oh my gosh. Okay. So how to overcome some of these difficulties, right? First, we want to create low pressure opportunities to express our desires. So what does that mean? It means maybe considering some nonverbal cues, some shared journaling, or even just like very low stakes questions like, what do you enjoy most when we're together, right? This is where like a card deck can be really helpful. I just dumped my card deck on the floor before we started recording, and I was like going through some of them with Ellen as I was picking them up. That can be very, very, very helpful. Another thing is to encourage without demanding. So if you're the more driven spouse, you might invite rather than push, saying something like, I'd love for you to start something tonight, but there's no pressure, right? So encourage without demand. And then you can also nurture desire with just romance and rest. Phlegmatics very much need that emotional connection and a peaceful environment to really engage. So allowing that to be the case, to kind of nurture that and happen, can really be helpful in combating some of those difficulties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so there's the 4 temperaments, and we definitely don't have time to go into like some of the mixed temperament struggles. So here's my call to you guys. If you liked this and you want us to like dive in more to it, like let us know, email or Instagram.
Send
and
message.
Our email's in the show notes, Instagram's in the show notes. It's at Charting Toward Intimacy on Instagram. And like, let us know if you want us to like dive into like, okay, so what if you have a choleric husband and a melancholic wife? Like, if you want us to kind of speak into the specifics there's plenty more to talk about on this topic. But if you listen to this and you're like, meh, I don't really care about temperaments, it's fine. We don't have to keep going.
Yeah.
We thought this was super interesting.
Well, and I think that too, that when we take this information on our temperament, our spouse's temperament, and we combine it with the love languages, like I think sometimes we've gotten very used to the love languages being sort of like the rule book for good romance, right? And like how to love and better connection, all that kind of stuff. But that's like just one facet of who your spouse is as a person, right? So when we take...
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
To connect. Like, we should do a follow-up episode, but it should be about how your temperament and your love language are connected.
Coincide. Yeah. Because I think there's just like the temperaments just get so much deeper. There's so much. And then when you can connect the temperaments to the love languages, it's like, it's almost like opening this incredible, I don't know, I want to say like Pandora's box of just like how to love better. You know what I mean? It's just like things can kind of piece together and just make so much sense. And it helps us give that whole picture of your spouse.
So maybe you'll hear a follow-up episode, but reach out to us if you enjoyed this and you want us to dive in deeper, because we found this super interesting and
they're going to.
Yeah, there's a lot more. All right. That'll do it for this episode.
Thanks so much for listening. If you're ready to stop feeling confused or discouraged about sex and finally understand how God designed your body for real, beautiful pleasure, you need to check out the Orgasm Course for Catholic women. I'll teach you the tools and the mindset you need to experience the intimacy you were made for, all deeply rooted in Catholic Church teaching. Head over to vinesandfullbloom.com/orgasm, and I'll see you inside.